Alright, so I just finished my first game of Civilization 7. Uh, I didn't want to do a review before now because I wanted to actually finish the game and see how it felt. And all in all, it's decidedly different, to put it as nicely as possible. Um, if you want the 5-second summary of what this entire review is going to be, the game is enjoyable. It is different. And above all, if you are somebody who is a very long-time fan of Civilization and you like how Civilization 5, Civilization 6 played, you are probably going to have no end to the things in this game that you are going to find annoying. That's just kind of the honest truth. I've been talking with one of my friends who is a very long time player of Civilization 5, and he does not like a lot of the changes that I've been telling him about in the game so far. So that's my 5-second review. To put it in a few more words than that, a lot has changed, and admittedly, the game does not entirely feel like Civilization in the way that you would expect it to in Civilization 6. The new town mechanics, while I find them very fun and honestly pretty nice, that you can have an entire town dedicated to just producing gold to fund everything else in your empire. I can see why people would dislike it, and I can see where it would cause people frustrations. Personally, I don't mind it. The cities themselves, not much different there. I do enjoy the way that the cities expand over the course of the game, though. As you construct more buildings and spread your city out, you can just tell at a glance, because of the way the city looks, that this is a massive city. By the end of the game, I believe I had Rome built up to, I think it was 53 population, something like that. And just on the map itself, it looked wonderful. I loved it. You could look through and see each of the individual buildings just sprawling out across the place. I loved it. I thought it was wonderful. And that is one thing that I do have to give the game credit for, is visually it's great. I love it. And, you know, I'm sure there's plenty of people who will disagree with me, but personally, I like seeing just everything that this game has to offer. The animations for the units moving around on the map, the units formed up on the generals moving with the general, so you can see just at a glance who's there. The generals themselves are a very welcome change for me from older games in the Civ series, just because I always hated having to spend 10 minutes just moving all the different units and trying to keep them in place and moving from point A to point B, and I haven't even started the battle yet. I'm just trying to get my units from one end of the empire to the other. Generals, commanders, air commanders, actually I didn't check if air commanders could move units, so I'm going to retract that part. But the naval commanders, the ground generals, love it. Genuinely love it. Made it so much easier to move a stack of 4-6 units from one spot to another, and one army was generally all I needed to take a city. So I was moving my units not as individuals, but essentially as battle groups, and just parked them on the border, had the general spit out the units, and the next turn they were ready to attack. The AI wasn't very aggressive on me, so I can't say that they did anything too special with their military. I was also playing very tech heavy, and I was playing on a average difficulty, so it might have just been that the AI couldn't catch up to me. The new espionage mechanic is an interesting one. You can spend influence, which is I think it's a new currency. I can't really think of if it was in a previous game or not. But you can spend influence to do different diplomatic actions, such as befriending a city-state, opening borders with another nation, starting a science agreement, which will get you more science from the other civilization, and it also gives them some science in return, so on and so forth. There's a lot of different things that you can do with it. One of them is espionage actions, which will let you steal tech or civics that you have not yet researched from the other civilization. So it can be, hypothetically, a good way to help catch up on a civilization that has you just outpowered, or is just ahead of you in tech and you need to get a leg up. That does also mean that you need to have the influence to perform this, and you can only perform the action once on one civilization, and then you have to wait 15 turns for it to play out. You get the reward, and then you can issue it again, assuming you have the resources to do so. I didn't have any problems with my gold or upkeep in general during this game, mostly because of the towns mechanic. I was making so much gold that the 1, 2, 3 gold upkeep on each of my units may as well have not been there. So, honestly, I feel like that may have also just been the fact that I had a lot of towns, so it kind of just snowballed after a while. But yeah, there was nothing in the game that was particularly painful to deal with. And while it is different, and some aspects of it remind me kind of a game like Millennia, except much more polished and not quite as rough around the edges, it's still an interesting experience. And personally, I'm gonna keep playing this, even after finishing my first game, even after seeing that there's a lot of people complaining about it. I don't share in their concerns. I think the game feels fun. I didn't have any problems sitting down, playing through, and losing track of time after a while, and realizing I said I was going to save the game and turn off 10 turns ago. So, I know everybody's going to have their own opinion on it, and a lot of people are going to hate it. But for me, I like it, and I can see myself getting at least a couple 100 hours out of this game. So, for anybody who's undecided on it, I'm not gonna lie, it is a pretty expensive game, as is most professionally made games nowadays. $70 does feel like it's asking a bit high, and I can't tell you what's worth it for you and what's not. But for me, I didn't mind picking it up. I enjoyed it. So that's about all I can say without just going back and repeating myself 5 more times. It's different. It's got a lot of pieces of it that are not going to feel familiar at first, but the way it's all put together, the way the ages work, it feels a little weird at first, because when you jump from one age to the other, it's essentially a soft reset on your civilization. Any military advantage you have is essentially lost. A lot of your advantages through the texts that you've researched go away. You lose most of your civics, so the age mechanics is going to be one of the most divisive things, and it's probably the biggest hitch for me out of anything. It's not game-breaking, and it's not going to make me stop playing, but I can see why people would be pretty frustrated about it. And it's the thing that I have the most trouble with, because I can go from being at the top of the tech tree and able to militarily overpower anybody else in the world to back on the same points as everybody else, and my level 1 exploration age melee unit is the same as the other person's level 1 exploration age melee unit. And if the age progresses and your enemy has you outnumbered, but your higher tier units, like your high-end melee units that were outclassing the enemy, are suddenly not outclassing them anymore. On that note, though, a lot of, pretty much all of the diplomatic agreements between civs get reset when the age changes as well. So if you're at war, that war is canceled. If you have an alliance, that alliance is canceled. And a lot of your relationships, things you've done from age to age, go away. So if you are very aggressive, if you're doing a lot of espionage, taking a lot of cities, a significant amount of those penalties, diplomatic penalties, will disappear when the age changes. And that is probably one of the biggest advantages. And one more positive thing that I can say about the ages before I wrap this up and call it a night is that the ages do help keep the game focused. In the Antiquity Age, you can't pass into deep ocean tiles. So you really only have to worry about the landmass that you spawn on. In my game, I was in a continent with Egypt. I want to say it was, I can't remember the civilization they played as, but it was Xerxes, Charlemagne, and I'm just going to say Egypt because I still can't remember her name. And that was it. I just had those 3 civs to deal with for the entirety of the first age. When the second age opened up and I started exploring the oceans, I ran into Friedrich. Right? It was Friedrich, I think was his name. Oh, goodness. Still learning all the new leaders going from Civ 6 to now. But it expanded the number of civs I got to talk to and the different ways I could interact with them. It also meant I had more rivals because in the exploration age, all the different civs are trying to get more resources away from their homeland. That means for me, I was being encouraged to settle on their home continent, and for them, they were being encouraged to settle on my home continent, which of course opens up the opportunity for conflict, as well as trade and other options. And then when we get to the modern age, things kind of settle down. The modern age does have a unique mechanic with factories that I'm not entirely sold on. It makes a lot of the resources that you spent most of the game gathering less than efficient. Because earlier on, your resources can kind of be freely assigned wherever you want. But when you get to the modern age, several of those resources become factory resources, which meant I had a massive stockpile of things that I had gathered during the exploration age that I couldn't use without a factory. And even then, I could only use 1 per settlement, which honestly, I didn't like it very much. Again, and coming back to where I started, it's not enough to make me stop playing. I still enjoyed it. I had fun overall. I ended off with a science victory. But it is a couple of points that feel a little strange or not entirely comfortable. But yeah, that's kind of all I got. Let me know what you think. If you disagree with me, if you agree with me, if you think I'm crazy, or if you want to give it a try yourself, let me know. I'm very curious to see if I'm, well, no, I'm not even going to pretend. I'm pretty sure most people are going to disagree with me on this one, but hey, it's up to you to decide what you think. See ya.